Citizens go to the polls to elect their 76 representatives to the European Parliament. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from TeleSur Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Argentina University Educators Union calls for a new 48-hour national strike caused by the lack of response by the Javier Milei's government about the false salaries in the education area. The Federation of University Educators explained that the strike will begin this Tuesday and will end on Wednesday, June 12th, with a march to the National Congress. It's expected that the teachers' unions will demand the senators to vote against the law of basis, a project that will be debated in Congress. Teachers denounced that the policies implemented by Javier Milei's administration have had a negative impact, causing up to 60% loss of purchasing power for educators. The Brazilian government announced that it imported more than 260,000 tons of rice to supply the domestic demand due to the impact of the storms in Rio Grande do Sul. The government's plan was opposed by Rio Grande do Sul's growers, who supply about 70% of Brazil's production, and by the national agricultural lobbies. The administration emphasized that the purchase will influence traders to bring prices down by selling at lower prices to the population the imported amount. According to the government, the rice is expected to be ready to be sold to the population within 45 to 60 days. The government also informed that Mercosur member countries are a priority for the purchase of the grain. And also on Friday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro signed important energy agreements with Turkey. The joint endeavors will be led by the working class that achieve the recovery of the state-owned petrochemical company. The move comes amid the far-right's privatization attempts. President Maduro signed these cooperation agreements that consolidate the alliance between Caracas and Ankara to strengthen the development of the natural gas value chain, in addition to agreements for the commercialization of minerals with emphasis on the respect for nature. Another of the agreements signed foresees the construction of a plant for the production of ammonia.
We are signing these documents for the construction of a large petrochemical plant for the production of ammonia. We have fully recovered Pequiven. It is a public company, a socialist company in the hands of the working class. And Pequiven, with the power they have, makes a first world strategic alliance to build with state-of-the-art technology a new plant.
The government of China strengthens relations with Latin America through meetings with senior officials from Brazil, Venezuela, and Cuba.
During the meeting with Brazilian Vice President Geraldo Alckmin, Chinese President Xi Jinping highlighted the importance of Brazil on the international stage and reaffirmed his friendship with the South American giant.
China and Brazil are good like-minded friends, good partners sharing good moments and bad moments, and good brothers moving forward hand in hand. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the establishment of bilateral diplomatic relations. Throughout these 50 years, the two sides have carried out exchanges and cooperation and deepened their friendship with the aim of building a community with a shared future.
In this regard, the Vice President of Brazil, Geraldo Alckmin, indicated that President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva has committed himself to making sustainable development a reality in Brazil, following the example of the Chinese government. In this context, China's top political advisor, Wang Ming, received the Venezuelan Foreign Minister, Ivan Gil, as part of the new historic period between the two nations. The Venezuelan diplomat said that the Latin American country fully supports the global initiatives proposed by the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Meanwhile, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez met with Political Bureau Standing Committee member Li Xi in an effort to consolidate bilateral inter-party ties. China continues to support Cuba in the search for a socialist path that suits its national conditions and in defense of its sovereignty. The Chinese government seeks to enhance strategic interests with Latin American countries as part of a strategy to confront Western threats to destabilize the global economy.
Now let's take a look at the Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil's visit to China. The Venezuelan top diplomat arrived in Beijing on Tuesday, and since then he and his delegation have had an intense agenda which focuses on following up the implementation of President Nicolas Maduro's commitment to consolidate a strategic alliance with the Asian nation. Included in Gil's busy agenda was the inauguration of the Simón Bolívar Square, located near the Venezuelan embassy in Beijing. The Venezuelan foreign minister also spoke with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi and attended the reception held to mark the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and Venezuela. Also in attendance was the Vice President of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress of China, Wei Weiwa. The Venezuelan top official also met with the President of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Conference, Wang Hunin. The meeting, which he'll describe as fruitful, focused on the solid political and diplomatic alliance between the two countries. Also in Gil's agenda was his meeting with the director of the Chinese National Space Administration, Zhang Keiyan, to continue the implementation of the space collaboration agreement signed in 2023, which included the training of Venezuelan astronauts in China and future missions to the moon. Finally, the Venezuelan diplomat held talks with the Vice President of the National People's Assembly of China, Wei Weiwa, to discuss issues of mutual interest and explore ways to strengthen integration. And also, as part of its agenda in the People's Republic of China, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil participated in a meeting at the Institute of International Study of China on Thursday aimed at strengthening the education system. Accompanied by the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs for Asia, the Middle East and Oceania, Tatiana Puk, the Venezuelan Foreign Minister said the meeting focused on the relevance of student exchange and scholarships in the creation of a future of integration and multipolarity. The visit of the Venezuelan delegation takes place in the context of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries and has as its main objective the consolidation of the strategic alliance with the Asian nation. In the context of relations between China and Latin America, Cuba received 3 photovoltaic parks provided by China to strengthen its energy matrix. The installations provided by the Chinese Agency for International Cooperation and Development represent a significant investment since the 3 parks generate megawatts of energy and are synchronized to the national electric system. The landmark marks the beginning of an investment offensive aimed at adding 1,000 megawatts to Cuba's energy matrix, in addition to reducing fuel consumption in electricity generation. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSur English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Palestine, at least 70 civilians were killed and more than 100 wounded amid 5 massacres carried out by the Israeli occupation forces during the last 24 hours. Health authorities confirmed that the number of people killed since October 7 exceeds 36,801, while the number of wounded is recorded at more than 83,000 people. This added to the blockade of Tel Aviv that prevents rescue teams to attend to the victims and to recover the bodies trapped under rubble. Israel killed more than 80 Palestinian civilians during a bombardment of the Nusayrat camp. The health ministry reported that most of the victims were children and women, while dozens were injured in the midst of the Israeli airstrike, land and sea onslaught on the camp. The Tel Aviv attacks targeted Al-Maghazi and Bureij camps and hit the vicinity of the Al-Aqsa hospital, which is the only operational health center in the region.
So the security forces will make every effort to bring those hostages.
The Al-Aqsa hospital is on the verge of collapse due to shortages of medicines, medical supplies and fuel. The main power generator has failed. Medical authorities say ambulances and the emergency section are insufficient to respond to calls for help. Still, there is one generator running, which is allowing to preserve the lives of a large number of patients. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports nearly 25,000 sick and wounded Palestinians waiting for medical treatment after the closure of the border with Rafah. Many of the patients could save their life if they managed to leave the enclave to be treated abroad. Detailed that the more than 11,000 wounded, 10,000 patients with cancer and another 2,000 with several pathologies are unable to access necessary care because of the incursion of the Israeli occupation army into the city of Rafah last May. The Russian armed forces shot down 28 Ukrainian drones flying over the southwest of the country. The Russian Defense Ministry said that the unmanned aerial vehicles were intercepted over different parts of the provinces of Belgorod and Crimea. The Russian agency described Kiev's military attacks as terrorist because they are aimed at destroying residential areas. Since the beginning of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine, the municipalities of Belgorod Oblast have been the most affected by the Ukrainian attacks. During his visit to France, U.S. President Joe Biden announces the provision of $225 million in military assistance to Ukraine. At a meeting with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, the U.S. President restated his support for Kiev. This as part of the Western offensive against the consolidation of Russia's leadership in the world. Let us remember that Moscow denounced the supply of arms and equipment by the Atlantic Alliance, whose aim is the invasion of its territories. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSur. Fun short break, don't go away. In Italy, citizens participate in elections to choose 76 representatives out of the 720 that make up the European Parliament. The ballot boxes in Italy for the European parliamentary elections open their first day this Saturday, June 8th. The second day is scheduled to take place on Sunday, after which the results will be announced. Experts estimate that these elections will be marked by abstentionism and the growth of the influence of the extreme right-wing parties in the European Parliament. At least 40 people were killed in Sudan following an attack by a paramilitary group. The Karari Resistance Committee denounced that the aggression was carried out by the Quick Rapid Support Forces and left more than 50 wounded. The committee added that most of the victims were transferred to the University Hospital Al-Now. Previously, in a similar event in the center of the country, an irregular group killed 104 people, among them children. One person dead and more than 30 trapped in a mine collapse in Nigeria caused by rainfall. The emergency services carried out several search and rescue operations with excavators to save the workers. For this reason, they plan to widen the deep shaft in order to facilitate the location of the miners. This despite the instability of the terrain and the insecurity due to the actions of criminal gangs operating in the area. The gold mine is located in the town of Kogo and is owned by the company African Minerals and Logistics. In the United Kingdom, Premier League clubs voted on Thursday to keep the video assistance refereeing technology known as VAR, but with some changes for next season.
The vote, which was 19-1 in favor of retaining the technology, was taken at the initiative of Wolverhampton Wanderers, who have criticized video assistant referees known as VAR for making mistakes, taking away from the excitement of the game, lengthening matches, and causing interruptions. However, the Premier League has confirmed that improvements will be made to ensure that VAR is used correctly in the competition, including maintaining a high standard of intervention, leading to greater consistency and fewer interruptions to the flow of the game.
France Football magazine announced that men's and women's 2024 Ballon d'Or award, also known as the Ballon d'Or, will be handed over on the banks of the Seine River on October 28th. The cigar organizers also added that the Copa Trophy for the best player under 21, the Yashin Trophy for the best goalkeeper, and the best coaches for men and women will also be awarded on that day. In Ivory Coast, the development of renewable energy sources is one of the main tasks of the Ministry of Energy. In this sense, the African nation is promoting the use of solar power plants to contribute to the development of the energy mix. Let's find out about the first solar plant connected to the national grid.
Inaugurated in June 2023, Ivory Coast's first solar power plant is located in the city of Boundiali, in the north of the country, and is the first to be connected to the national grid as part of the West African country's commitment to clean energy without fossil fuels, with the aim of improving electricity supply to more than 430,000 households, according to the Ministry of Energy.
On the other hand, in Boundiali, the northern part of the country, irradiance is very high. Irradiance is the quantity of light that the sky sends, that the forgiving sun sends to the earth. So we have a lot more of this quantity of light in the northern part of the country. So the most appropriate place to build solar photovoltaic power plants is really in the northern part of the country.
Unlike the more humid and cloudy south, the northern climate is warm and dry for much of the year, which makes it very suitable for solar energy.
If we have several solar photovoltaic power stations, what will that do? Relieve the transit of energy that passes through these lines from the south to the north of the country. So that's the importance of having. And it contributes to the energy mix. We're going to use water, gas, but also the sun. We're going to make sure that wherever we invest, we have the maximum amount of electricity.
In this region of some 92,000 inhabitants, some 350 people have been hired since the plant's construction began. Most were hired on a short-term basis to install solar panels or perform maintenance tasks.
I like working here at the plant because I get paid well. I can feed my family and look after people at home. Well, I'd prefer the job to last a bit longer, but if it does, I'll really enjoy it.
Ivory Coast already exports about 10% of its electricity to neighboring countries and aims to generate almost half of its power from renewable sources by 2030 in a continent that, although it has doubled its capacity to produce clean energy, still account for only 2% of global capacity.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.
El mundo se mueve constantemente.